This is an introduction to the course entitled Changing Organizational Culture to Achieve World-Class Performance. The question that is often asked is, why bother with a course dedicated to managing the process of organizational change? The reason is you don't want to be part of the 80% of all related change efforts that fail. That's right. 80% of the change efforts that are attempted either fail to get implemented or fail to sustain themselves over time. What I want to introduce you to, and what's covered in the course in much more detail, are 6 things that you should know about change before you begin. Number 1 is that change is difficult. What you see here is a picture of Niccolò Machiavelli, an Italian statesman who lived about 600 years ago. And what he said in his book The Prince about government applies equally well to the world of change in which we are going to get involved. Because what he said is there's nothing more difficult to take in hand, nor more perilous to conduct, than to institute a new order of things. Because the innovator has for enemies all those who did well under the old conditions, and at best lukewarm defenders from those who feel they may do well under the new. Think about that definition related to any change process that you're trying to implement. You're going to have resistance from the people who did well under the old conditions and don't want to change. And at best, you may have some lukewarm defenders or supporters from people who think that the new way may benefit them. Number 2, there needs to be a recognition that there's no such thing as a magic pill. A magic pill is something that you swallow and your process and problems go away. Change is not like that. Change requires a good deal of hard work and a lot of time and effort from everyone. Number 3, change is not a project, it's a process. The problem with a project is it has a beginning and an end, and then people move on to whatever the next project is on their list. Change is not like that. Change is a process that, while it has a beginning, does not have an end. And as soon as you believe that there is an end and move on to something else, the process will suffer. Number 4, while we're mostly familiar with implementing tasks, there is a great deal more below the surface. What you see here is what's referred to as the change pyramid. At the top are task-based changes, the things we're most familiar with. Implementing planning and scheduling, implementing a PM program, and the things of that nature. But that is only the tip of the iceberg. Below that are 2 additional levels. The first is what I refer to as the strategic elements of change, often called the 8 elements of change, which are leadership, work process, structure, group learning, technology, communications, interrelationships, and rewards. These 8 elements must be addressed if you want to stay out of the 80% bucket of task-based changes that fail. And further below that is the foundational level of change, the organizational culture, values, role models, rites and rituals, and the cultural infrastructure. Number 5, you must address organizational culture. You need to understand what cultural change means, and you need to address these elements of culture. Because without cultural alignment, change efforts are doomed to failure. And number 6, change is a barrier. There are 4 steps. Typically, we try to start with task-based changes and wonder why things don't work. But first, you really need dissatisfaction with the current state. Because if people aren't dissatisfied, they're not going to be very willing to change. Second, you need to address the organizational culture, the 4 elements of culture. Third, you need to address the strategic aspects. And last but not least, you can address the tasks. The important takeaway, the underpinning of this course, is that task-based change is only as good as the foundation on which it's built. The course is presented in 23 modules. There's a section on the basics about change management, information about a topic called spiral learning, a discussion about the difference between assumptions and facts, a detailed discussion about the 8 elements of change and the 4 elements of culture, a discussion about organizational vision, and the goal achievement model, a tool to enable you to achieve your vision. Another piece that will be discussed is something called the roadmap of change, because everything you do has outcomes and impacts on those involved, and they need to be addressed. We'll also talk about readiness and sustainability, and I will also present you with a process called the web of change, which is a way to evaluate what your change process is all about and how it's succeeding, related to the 8 elements of change and 4 elements of culture, which are key to successful change. Because again, you don't want to be in that 80% of the group that failed. Implementing change in your organization. It isn't an easy trip, but it's well worth the journey. And this course will deliver to you tools you need to make that journey a success.